publicly what I have said in private. I thank them for the dedication and competence they brought to the service of our country. But I owe my deepest thanks to you, to the American people, because you gave me this extraordinary opportunity to serve. We've faced great challenges together, and we know that future problems will also be difficult. But I'm now more convinced than ever that the United States, better than any other country, can meet successfully whatever the future might bring. These last 4 years have made me more certain than ever of the inner strength of our country, the unchanging value of our principles and ideals, the stability of our political system, the ingenuity and the decency of our people. Tonight, I would like first to say a few words about this most special office, the Presidency of the United States. This vision still grips the imagination of the world, but we know that democracy is always an unfinished creation. Each generation must renew its foundations. Each generation must rediscover the meaning of this hallowed vision in the light of its own modern challenges. For this generation, ours, life is nuclear survival. Liberty is human rights. The pursuit of happiness is a planet whose resources are devoted to the physical and spiritual nourishment of its inhabitants. During the next few days, I will work hard to make sure that the transition from myself to the next president is a good one, that the American people are served well.
Welcome to Marin Television, a celebration for President Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday. Spencer Christian from ABC is here with us, and we are so lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to be invited.
My name is Barbara McVeigh, and we are here with you live for 2 hours to celebrate Carter with some special guest musicians, writers, and a real reflection.
It's going to be an amazing celebration. First of all, we're talking about a very amazing person in Jimmy Carter. 100 years old, the longest living U.S. president ever. And many of the people on the program tonight will have personal reflections. I certainly have some on their encounters with Jimmy Carter and what he means to this country and to the world, actually.
Now, you got involved with the Carters at some point. Can you tell us the story of your relationship to the Carters?
Yeah, I'll try not to make it too long because it's kind of a long story. But when I worked at Good Morning America in New York before I moved here to the Bay Area, this picture you're looking at is from President Carter's 75th birthday celebration in Americus, Georgia. That was in 1999. I had just moved here to the Bay Area. But because of my connection with the Carters over the years, I was invited to MC this amazing event. What an honor. But I first met President Carter during the 1988 Democratic Convention. I was assigned to go to the Carter Presidential Library to interview him on the grounds of the library there. So President Carter was an avid runner in those days, and as my camera crew and I were setting up, he was out running around the grounds with his Secret Service agent, and he came jogging up to me, and he introduced himself. He said, "Hi, Spencer, I'm Jimmy Carter," as if I didn't know. And he said the Carter family wanted to thank me for having been so kind to his brother, Billy Carter, whom I had interviewed 8 years prior to that. So anyhow, that's what started our relationship. Then a couple of years later, I worked with the Carters building a house for Habitat for Humanity in Washington, D.C. I did my live Good Morning America broadcast at the site of the build. Interviewed him a number of times after that when he released new books. He's a prolific author, as you know.
As we will find out, too.
Yeah. And then I moved, I mentioned that I emceed this event shortly after I moved here. Then 5 years ago, in 2019, when President Carter turned 95, I was invited back to MC that event, which was in Plains, Georgia. So I've had ongoing interaction with the Carters over a period of nearly 4 decades.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll tell you a little story about how this whole effort got started. 7 years ago now, it was in 2017. Oh, first, I do have to say, I was at the official Carter party last week.
Yes.
It was amazing.
I'll bet it was.
It was about 3 hours of nonstop music and laughter and reflection as well. It was really, really beautiful, and it was a perfect kind of seal to all that we've been doing. This amazing group since 2017. Wow. We have been throwing parties every year in celebration of Carter. Yep. But interestingly, when we started on October 1, 2017, that day was also the same day as the last day of the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love.
Oh, yes.
So it was amazing. And they were up in the sky. There was an airplane circling the sky and then creating hearts in the sky, and we were out on the lawn celebrating with, maybe a bottle of champagne, getting ready to host our first event, which was a film screening of a film called A Road Not Taken. Mm-hmm. And we brought Swiss filmmakers over to share their film, which Carter had interviewed for, which was very special. And we had a beautiful event, and that was the very first one. And since then, we've been having music events and more. But here in Marin County, where this all got started, one city, actually Nevada City, issued a proclamation, but then our county issued a proclamation in celebration of President Jimmy Carter.
Right.
And Kate Sears, on the board of supervisors here in Marin County, shared just some beautiful words, and I'd really like to share those words
please do.
With us now. And we'll see that video right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have just a number of resolutions on consent that I'd like to mention. And the first one, it's at CA1F, and it's a resolution honoring President Jimmy Carter on his 93rd birthday and proclaiming October 1st to 8th, 2017 as President Jimmy Carter Week. And, creating this resolution, it was really valuable to look back and be reminded of what an amazing leader President Carter was in energy conservation, peace and health, housing for needy families, and community and neighborliness. It's like all the values that I think are really matter to us today, and sometimes we don't have enough of. But I wanted to read a couple of quotes by Carter that I think capture that last point that I just made. So in his farewell address to the nation, President Carter said, quote, "Our American values are not luxuries but necessities, not the salt in our bread but the bread itself." And then he came back around in 2007 with also a wonderful message, I think, which was, quote, "Whether the borders that divide us are picket fences or national boundaries, we are all neighbors in a global community." And it makes you sometimes have a sense of not deja vu, but wishing it was deja vu. So, happy to be supporter.
Really amazing statement.
It's a huge statement. And it says a lot about what the Carters believe in, what their character is, because they've always been global citizens. After his presidency, they traveled over the entire world on behalf of the Carter Foundation to be a voice for the poor and the powerless, and to help eradicate diseases in impoverished nations. And of course, here at home, domestically, building homes for the poor through Habitat for Humanity. They are the most selfless people I've ever met. And it's been their mission in their entire lives to serve all of humanity globally.
Well, visiting Atlanta last week to visit the Carter Center and visit Plains, Georgia, it was such an education for me.
Yeah.
This is, of course, after the big event. I also visited the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. National Park. They had a beautiful section of Carter in that museum, recognizing the work that really was done together.
Yes.
And I thought that was such a beautiful statement of brotherhood and how we can work together. And he had so much work related to human rights, which I would love to bring on a very special guest. We have Mischa Geracoulis with us. Mischa is zooming in from Virginia. She is a human rights journalist, and then she also is working with Project Censored. Welcome, Mischa. Thank you so much for coming. We would love to hear about your connection to the Carter Center.
First of all, it is such a pleasure to join you, Barbara and Spencer, on this auspicious occasion. I'm thrilled to be able to add my happy birthday wishes for Mr. Carter to yours. So my connections started, I would say, officially in 2018 when I attended the annual Carter Center Human Rights Defenders Forum as a journalist observer. I was working as a journalist at the time, and it was almost, the forum itself was like being at a UN meeting. There were people, representatives from all over the world. Mr. and Mrs. Carter were there, the center of it all, conducting the forum. And this is something that this Carter Center has done for years and continues to do. That really helped to deepen my convictions for universal human rights, not the least of which is the right to a free press and to the free flow of information. And it helped to inform my work in journalism and in the work I do with Project Censored, which is a media watch and educational organization that, among other aims, takes a rights-based approach to analyzing the media. And so for me, Mr. Carter's lifelong dedication to peace building, truth telling, equality, and democracy really shines as a North Star for our shared commitment to those same principles. Mm-hmm. And when I say our, I mean those of us connected here this evening to honor Jimmy Carter's birthday. Of course, the team I work with at Project Censored, and truly everyone everywhere who's working to uphold those same values. You know, in January 2022, Mr. Carter wrote an op-ed that was published in the New York Times expressing very beautifully his deep concern for the viability of U.S. democracy, pointing out the toxic polarization that threatens our democratic institutions. The content of that op-ed is still very much alive today, and I think gets to the heart of his life work and the mission of the Carter Center. A champion of ideals of human rights, civil rights, social justice, and democratic freedoms, Jimmy Carter has exemplified those ideals and elevated the standards of conduct and civility. And you know, Barbara, Spencer, you guys know more than anybody, he hasn't just theorized and written and talked about these things, he's actually lived it.
Yeah, exactly.
And his birthday, just weeks before the next US presidential election, is a great reminder that, you know, as he wrote in that 2022 New York Times piece, and I'll quote, "While citizens can disagree on policies, people of all political stripes and beliefs must agree on fundamental constitutional principles and norms of fairness, civility, and respect for the rule of law." Something I believe is implicit in those words is the importance of ethical journalism as public service and its role in speaking truth to power and to upholding the public's right to be informed. I'm bringing up that op-ed for several reasons. The first is that those words are apropos, given the political environment rife with violence, vilification, disregard for the Constitution, and hostility towards the press. The second reason is that Project Censored produces and publishes a yearly book called The State of the Free Press. And within that book is a chapter called Media, Democracy, and Action that I have the privilege of curating and editing. The 2022 op-ed that Mr. Carter wrote provided deep reflection for me in writing the introduction of the 2024 Media, Democracy, and Action chapter. And also, I would say, Jimmy Carter's thought process and articulation brought attention to the ways that a compromised press compromises democracy and vice versa. You know, if I have to kind of summarize my thoughts, my feelings, my respect for our honorable 39th President Jimmy Carter, I would say that he has demonstrated the very best of public service and what a former U.S. president can accomplish for the greater good. Tonight, we're joined together symbolically lighting his candles on a birthday cake for him and wishing him happy birthday. And I think also taking up the torch that's passed to all of us. And it's really an honor to participate in hopefully continuing that legacy.
Right.
In Carter's farewell address, not the piece that we showed tonight, but he did say beautifully that he was entering the most powerful position, and that is as a private citizen, not as a president.
That's right.
Basically giving us a reminder of our power as the people. And I suspect, Mischa, and I wonder what your views are, I feel he's been proving that to us ever since his presidency with all the work that he has done. Do you feel that there is a message in that?
I think his message is in the way he conducts himself on a day-to-day basis. You said it so beautifully. Yes, there is a deep message in everything that he says and he does. He really lives his beliefs. You know, when I got to witness him in action at the Human Rights Forum, he would go up to every person who was there, you know, during breaks and embrace them as brothers, sisters. He has such a deep respect for life and for democracy and for freedom. It's apparent in the work that he has done throughout his life. The presidency was like just the very beginning.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting you refer to the fact that he lives out those principles in his real life, because, the first of his many books that I read is entitled Living Faith, and he's talking about how to practice the principles of your faith or whatever is the guiding force in your life without necessarily trying to impose your beliefs on someone else. And you know, Jimmy Carter was, before he hit the national scene, when he was governor of Georgia, he was the first Southern governor to support civil rights. Mischa referred to Jimmy Carter's support for human rights and civil rights and all that. And he and his family pulled out of a Baptist church that they had been attending that refused to allow people of color to worship there. And they formed a new church to worship, the one he's attended for the rest of his life. Marin Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia. That takes moral courage, because the Ku Klux Klan could have attacked him, burned crosses on his lawn, or something worse. But he showed the moral courage that a leader should have.
Especially in a small town, where
yes.
I'm sure the...
and especially in the state of Georgia.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mischa, for joining us tonight. Is there anything more that you would like to share? Any last thoughts?
You know, I'll share a fun fact. I think this is a lesser known aspect of the Carter's legacy, but something close to home for me is the school that I went to, my alma mater, George Mason University, has a school called the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. It offered the very first master's program in conflict analysis and resolution and the very first PhD program in peace and conflict in North America. All, you know, many thanks to the Carter's influence.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It really is.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mischa.
Thank you so much for having me and for all that you are both doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Spencer, I reflect on the 60s. You know, Carter was known as the last president of the 60s era. And during that era, there was such a fight and a stand for civil rights, for peace.
Yeah.
There was such a movement of people fighting for such things.
That's true. For social justice, for civil rights, for women's rights, equality of the sexes. All that was going on in the 60s. It was an exciting time to be a part of all that. I was in college in the late 1960s, and I marched for various causes, and that was one of the things that inspired me to get into the news industry. Not because I wanted to be on TV. I didn't. I wanted to be a journalist like Mischa, and chronicle the events of my time. And certainly those were exciting and inspiring events of the late 60s. It was an idealistic period, right? When we believed in the best of humankind, and we tried to encourage it to have a more prominent place.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a surprise that Carter loves music.
Yeah, the rock and roll president.
The rock and roll president. That is why we call ourselves the Jimmy Carter Jamboree. Got to have some fun with this, and we've been having a lot of fun.
We have.
But to Mischa's point, I think there is an opportunity right now for deep reflection, and reflecting certainly on Carter's role and mission and policies and how he set such a great standard. And he inspires me all the time. I always think, what would Carter do in that moment? Not all the time.
I'll have to start asking myself that.
But back to this civil rights era, you know, I had the absolute privilege to interview Harry Belafonte
Yes.
about 4 years ago. And he was a majestic man. I mean, he was funny. He made me feel comfortable. We cracked some jokes, but he was also very serious.
Yes.
And he was a mover and shaker during the civil rights era, of course. And as I understand it, helped fund Martin Luther King Jr. playing music and supporting Martin Luther King Jr. with his mission.
That's true.
Which I thought was really beautiful.
Yeah.
So, with all of that said, we have a video of the guitarist of Harry Belafonte. He's a Brazilian guitarist named José Neto. He and Narada Michael Walden, who is a local here in Marin, but more than that, he is a very famous producer, from Whitney Houston to Aretha Franklin to so many of the greats. They put a little video together.
I want to see this.
And it's called It's the 60s Now.
Oh.
And so we're going to go to that video and let's listen to what they have to sing about.
Okay.
It's called It's the 60s Now.
Each of us is like a drop of rain. Each of us might follow a bright star. But we must save the earth in multiple ways. Well, even so, we do as we believe in. I see you in the sunlight. It's the 60s now. Smiling in the sunset, feeling all anew. It's the 60s now. Come together, people, bring your heart and love. It's the 60s now. Power revolution, standing for what's right. It's the 60s now. For most of us has not improved. A few billion live in agony. Of course, the rest of us are deeply moved. Yeah. Like jamming at the fair. Ah, Curtis Mayfield, where'd you go to now? I got Marvin Gaye on my radio, yeah, he know how. Ah, Muddy Waters, give me that love all day and night. Little Stevie Wonder fingertips, oh, you're out of sight. I see you in the sunlight as I'm going here. It's the 60s now. Smiling in the sunset, feeling all anew. It's the 60s now. Come together, people, bring your heart and love. It's the 60s now. Power revolution, standing for what's right. It's the 60s now.
Thank you, José, Neto, and Narada, Michael Walden. I mean, doesn't that just want to get you up and start dancing?
It does, yeah. Well, we were sitting here moving in the chair earlier. Yes, that music makes you want to move. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to introduce with us Michael Stalker. He is the founding director of Ocean Conservation Research, and he has been with us with the Jimmy Carter Jamboree since 2017. He served as a panelist for a film screening, a film called A Road Not Taking, which went in to Carter's environmental, solar initiatives, and it was a beautiful film. Carter had actually interviewed for that film.
Wow.
But you've been rolling with us pretty much ever since.
Yeah, and it's been totally an honor here. I mean, this is really an auspicious day. 100 years of somebody who is, he's just, and he's not really honored as much as the other. He didn't make such a mess. You know?
Right, that's right.
He left us with things to think about. I think he was kind of a guy to ask us to take responsibility for our own participation.
That's right.
In our relationship with our nation, our relationship with our world, our relationship with our environment.
Yeah.
So it was really. It was really an honor to kind of be invited to participate back then and to continue to support your work, Barbara.
Well, it's all of it. I mean, it's just been a community effort. And, we were talking earlier about things that Carter isn't really known for. Carter is known for writing books.
Oh, he's a prolific author. Well, he's written, what, 30, something like 30 books? 28 or 30? I have 8 of his books in my collection at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this one. He's also not only a writer, but he's a craftsman of wood. Wow. And there's this incredible book I recommend, and all these beautiful images, if I can find something really beautiful, of work that he's done, and from furniture to guitars to so many other beautiful, you can see his tool shed there.
And he's put that talent to work building homes for Habitat for Humanity, because I was on one of those sites with the Carters, and they were building. In fact, I did a broadcast from that location, but then when my broadcast ended, I stayed there with them for the rest of the day, and I watched him work, and he was not only doing, the work that hammering nails and putting up fences and all that, but he went inside the house and showed his craftsmanship with the things he did in the house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Another book, this is one of my favorite ones, Jimmy Carter, A Call to Action, Women, Religion, Violence, and Power.
Yeah.
I feel like this one really resonates right now.
Oh my gosh, does it ever.
Yeah, and these are just a few of his books. He was very also involved in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Of course, did his amazing peace brokering between Israel and Egypt.
Camp David Accords, yeah.
Camp David Accords. So I brought a couple of books. One, he wrote Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Mm-hmm. He actually spent a lot of time in Palestine. And also, We Can Have Peace in the Holy Land.
Right.
It's another beautiful book.
Yeah.
And I think this was one of your favorite ones.
Yeah,
is that
right.
right?
This one is called Faith, but there was one before that was called Living Faith, which is, well, I love them both. But Living Faith was the first book of his that I read, so that always has been special to me. Yeah.
It's amazing. And these are just a few of the books.
Just a few of his many books.
I did want to bring this book too. I just happened to stumble across this one. Dennis Hayes wrote a book called Rays of Hope, The Transition to a Post-Petroleum World. Dennis Hayes served in the Carter administration. And this was written in 1976, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow.
which is amazing when they were already talking about conservation back in the late 70s.
That, and also not being dependent upon foreign fossil fuel. So he wanted to decrease our dependence on Saudi oil by 40%, which he did. It was a little bit of a kind of uncomfortable because we didn't have all of the assets at that time. So there were a lot of the shift involved coal. So a lot of us environmentalists got a little grumpy about that. But really in terms of what was happening, there were still gas lines. I'm sure you remember those.
I do, yeah.
There was gas lines during his administration, and it was difficult. And we needed to take the message of using less energy, which is a message which is very prescient right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can't just unplug the pipeline and plug in the power cable and head to this, the same cliff.
Right.
We need to use less energy, and that was one of the things that I think Jimmy Carter really was stressing, and it was hard. It was a little bit, gave people a little indigestion that we had to take personal responsibility for our participation in our own community.
Yeah.
But one of the things he did that made it really easy, we think oftentimes that Richard Nixon was the last environmental president because we passed the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, National Environmental Policy Act, the EPA Environmental Protection Agency. All of these agencies were put together, but Nixon really didn't have a lot of voice in that. He was kind of forced to do it because the entire population of the United States was tired of the Love Canal, the Stringfellow acid pits, the Cuyahoga River fire, the Santa Barbara oil spill. So he really just had to sign the documents. He didn't make this stuff up. But what he did in the end is hand the Carter administration a couple of buckets of bolts and a couple of buckets of nuts and fruits, and they were just all over the place. They were not administered well. So what Carter did, which kind of really consolidated and gelled the effectiveness of those acts, was bring them all together. For example, the Department of Fisheries, the Department of Weather, under National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. So consolidated them so it actually became an administration that could be used by the people under National Environmental Policy Act to actually gel and make these policy decisions happen. The same thing with the Department of Energy. At the time that all these new energy acts were together, if some industry was not getting the answer from some small little agency over here, they just go over here and get the answer they wanted.
Right.
So we had to consolidate and gel this, and I think putting this under the Department of Energy was a really important a way of allowing us, the people, to actually work with equal voice as all the industries that were otherwise kind of tearing our environment asunder.
And Michael, you made reference a couple of times to Jimmy Carter's encouraging individual responsibility. He didn't ask us to make huge sacrifices. He just suggested that we turn the thermostat down a couple of degrees and wear a sweater. And people were shocked. So he was vilified for that. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's a simple request. It's not a big deal.
It's common sense.
Yeah,
it's more than
common
that.
sense.
It's just common sense.
Yeah. Well, some people did resonate with it, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I think one of the reasons why there was a little indigestion with that wasn't just because the individuals who were having to kind of adjust their lives to it, but the industry that had taken a big hit was using that as leveraging that into basically trying to diminish Carter's impact on us.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, another thing that Carter did was expand the Redwood National Park up north, a land of some of the tallest the tallest trees of the world. And this was not a popular act at the time. This was in 1978 because it also meant the sacrifice of jobs for the lumber mills and the people, and the really hard-working, solid family people, and they were not happy, and you can understand that.
Right.
It is hard to make change. I hear and say thank you for that sacrifice because today we have a flourishing, beautiful park up north. So, well, we were up to some trouble, Spencer.
Aren't you always?
We went up to Oric on Sunday and said, look, we would like to celebrate you and also Jimmy Carter. And so Michael and I actually traveled up north, about 4 hours north of where we are here in San Rafael, California, and rented their little community hall and brought together some people in town. And you can see some of the images here. We had some music, we had a beautiful birthday cake. One woman had a signed book of Carter's Call to Action book that she was so excited. The Yurok tribe joined us, some members joined us and gave a beautiful land acknowledgement. But most importantly, I think, well, that's all important, we were able to hear a little bit of healing in the town. Steve Madrone, who is the supervisor there in Humboldt County, wrote a beautiful proclamation for Jimmy Carter and presented it to Donna Hufford of the Oric Chamber of Commerce. And it was really a delight to see that. Really recognizing everybody.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was. And but something happened when we walked out of the building. This was very surreal. When we walked out of the building, who did we see?
Well, we were surrounded by elks. And these are the Roosevelt elks. It's not like the Thule elks we have here in Marin County. These folks are like 800 to 1,000 pounds, and they're big.
Huge. Band of females, and then a huge one, a buck with these huge antlers. And it was, they're named after President Roosevelt. I didn't know that. You knew that?
I read it just yesterday. Just yesterday.
And Roosevelt, I had to look this up afterwards, had some amazing things to say, along with Jimmy Carter, like things about, find the balance of nature and what we need, and a real stand for human dignity, and and a stand for all races too, and be there for one another.
Roosevelt also started the national parks. And so, and the first one was Yellowstone National Monument, and there were people trying to persuade him, and they sent people like Albert Bierstadt and Thomas Marin out there to paint these unbelievably beautiful oils of these places to bring into Congress. And actually, a lot of these things, or a number of them, are actually down in our art museum down in the Golden Gate Park right now. If you get an opportunity to see them, they'll break them out occasionally. But Congress being presented with this unbelievably gorgeous landscapes that were painted, decided to save Yellowstone. And that was the beginning of the national park system.
I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that. So I think those Roosevelt elk had a few things to say. It really felt auspicious, I'll tell you.
Yes,
They have an
definitely.
imposing presence, don't they?
That they do, that they do. But on the subject of proclamations, we did hear from Kate Sears in the very beginning how this all started to get started. In 2017, we got that first proclamation. And then we got to see the proclamation delivered to Donna Hufford there in Oric, California. But since then, we have been, this year, getting proclamations from counties across the state of California.
You have been.
Wow, a few people have been involved in this.
Well, I'm sure others are involved, but you have been the driving force behind this. It's amazing.
I'm going to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors here in across California. We'll acknowledge them in a minute, but I do want to point out this one that's
Is this the one?
right in front of you.
Okay.
This is utterly beautiful, framed. This came today, actually. I got to attend the board meeting in Oakland, California, and it was Alameda County. Issued this gorgeous proclamation, and I don't know, do you want to read maybe just,
sure.
there are a lot of whereases, there's a lot of words.
So we
but
don't read
maybe-
the whole thing, but President Jimmy Carter, whereas James Earl Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, 1977 to 1981, will celebrate his 100th birthday on October 1st, 2024, making him the longest-lived president in history, as well as the nation's longest retired president, and whereas Jimmy Carter's commitment to public service has lasted close to 80 years, beginning with his service in the U.S. Navy and as a Georgia state senator, then governor of Georgia before becoming president of the United States in 1977. And whereas, and it goes on and on to talk about his public service, his support for human rights, continued his service to the country after his presidency, along with Rosalind Carter, his wife. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, entering hospice care just 2 years ago in 2022, but continued to remain actively involved, I should say, in promoting peace and democracy abroad, supervising elections in fledgling democracies, advancing human rights, and promoting economic and social development, on and on. So, now, therefore, the Alameda County Board of Supervisors does honor former President Jimmy Carter for his 8 decades of service to this country, and does thereby proclaim October 1st through 8th, 2024, to be Jimmy Carter Week in Alameda County, and is signed by the President of the Board of Supervisors and all of the other supervisors in Alameda County.
It's pretty significant,
Yeah.
a Jimmy Carter Week.
Yes.
I don't know if any other states are doing this. Do you think?
I'm
think
not
we're
aware.
ahead.
Well, you would think Georgia might, but given the political climate in Georgia, maybe
Yeah,
not.
hard to say.
Maybe not.
Well, Alameda County was, they delivered theirs today, and it was very special because today, of course, is President Jimmy Carter's birthday.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we wrote letters to various counties here in California, and we're going to share some of these. This is another one from the county of Tuolumne. Look how beautiful that is.
Beautiful.
And like Alameda, they also made a lot of whereases and a lot of acknowledgement of what Carter has done.
Well, there's so much to acknowledge.
There is. And
Yeah.
another thing that we hadn't talked about, which I think is really significant, is the guinea worm in Africa.
Yes.
And Tuolumne County acknowledges that incredible health success. I think there was something like 2.3 million cases when Carter started this health initiative in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And today there might be
A handful, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It essentially eliminated the problem with the guinea worm. Yeah.
which is a horrific parasite
Oh,
that you
gosh.
get from water. It goes into your body.
From
It's a
contaminated
painful.
water,
And
yeah.
if you are, and I think Carter has said this, if you are in a state of bad health and you can't even function, there's no way you're going to be an active citizen.
Yeah.
You can't even do anything just other than survive. So by having a healthier society, you make for a stronger people
Yes.
to stand for your democracy and be involved in your government politics.
Well said. Very well
Yeah. So I thought that was an important effort.
said. It is.
And what was interesting was that it wasn't done with drugs. There were no drugs involved, no vaccines involved.
That's
It was
right.
all done through a habit of how you drink water and filtering the water
And filtering
properly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So thank you to Tuolumne
Yeah.
Wow.
County. We do have to acknowledge also San Diego. They were the first ones to send a proclamation. And they, they just sent it right away. I sent out a letter, and there in the mailbox was a proclamation. I'm not sure how they did that so quickly. But again, all signed by the supervisors of San Diego County.
Yeah.
They really focused on the affordable housing and community service. And, you know, when I was at the Tuolumne board meeting, I heard such long talks about the homeless problem here in California. And they had a lot of speakers at their board meeting, you know, addressing this disaster that we are really facing. So when they got to the Jimmy Carter proclamation, everyone lit up and started talking about Habitat for Humanity because, boy, that could be a real answer.
It could be. That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
And Habitat for Humanity is about people getting involved.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to give you credit once again for all the work you put into getting these counties on board with this project, because we were communicating regularly by way of email as Barbara was approaching these various counties, and I'd get a message from her saying, I approached Tuolumne County today, and I'm kind of hopeful they're going to join us. And then one by one, we saw all these counties coming on board. You worked tirelessly on this, so you deserve some credit for this.
Well, I really just want to say thank you to these counties for believing in us
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the trust. And I think they were very happy to do this, which really gives me a sense of optimism, right?
Yeah.
So we have a couple more. We really need to honor this work that they did. Let's see, this one, let's see, where was this one? This is another resolution. And this came from, where did this one, this one came in the mail just yesterday. They have a beautiful seal down at the bottom. It's Sutter County.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, and again, Habitat for Humanity, and they focused on his Peace Prize and continuing to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, which I would surely love to see more of today.
The best way to resolve international conflicts is to promote a peaceful resolution. Yeah.
Indeed. And last but not least, this is from the County of Sacramento. They gave a beautiful folder, and again, a beautiful blue ribbon with their seal. And they wrote, let's see, I won't read it all, but again, affordable, decent housing for all, donating their time and leadership each year to build and improve homes for Habitat for Humanity, of course. And they had some numbers here, which I thought was very interesting. Over the course of more than 30 years, the Carters have worked alongside 106,100 volunteers in 14 countries to build, renovate, and repair more than 4,417 homes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Truly amazing. And they really did work at it. They didn't just organize it. And of course, you know the Carters. They're very humble people. Never wanted to be the focus of attention or media attention. They just went in there and did the work. In fact, the one time that I did this broadcast at a location where they were doing a build, Jimmy Carter was almost annoyed that they were there. He didn't really want to go on and do interviews because obviously some people might interpret that as calling attention to himself. Look what I'm doing. And of course that isn't who Jimmy Carter is.
Yeah.
He's just amazing.
Wow, he was there slinging nails.
Yeah, he was. He was hammering those nails and carrying boards, 2x4s, and he's amazing.
And they also point out the installation of solar panels, which it's mind-boggling to think that he put solar panels on the White House back in 1978, Michael?
77, 78, yeah. 78.
Yeah. Or I think a lot of people laughed at him for that.
I'm not sure how much people laughed at him, but I know that Ronald Reagan came in, they tore them out as fast as possible.
They did.
I mean, I think one of the things that Jimmy Carter, I look at him as the last president that governed over citizens living in a society. And that when Ronald Reagan came in, we became consumers living in an economy. And that's increasingly become our problem because we are jammed up in this idea that participation has to do with consumerism as opposed to the types of participation, cooperation, and engagement that Jimmy Carter was proposing for us.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michael. Is there anything that you would like to share more?
I am just honored to be here. Jimmy Carter, you mentioned that he's been kind of faded into the background. I think it's because he did a lot of complicated things and made it seem simple, but a lot of people were not able to understand what he was inviting us to do, which was to participate. It was those words that Ronald Reagan brought in, the 9 most frightening words to the American citizen: I'm with the government and I'm here to help you. I think that was really kind of pulling the curtain down on what Jimmy Carter was attempting to do, was consolidate, make the government a workable set of agencies that we could actually, as citizens under the National Environmental Policy Act, my work, to actually get to work for us. So hopefully we can shift our intentions back to being citizens in the society again.
Yeah, I think we just need some inspiration right now. And I hope maybe this
We
could
do.
be it.
Yes. Well, we'll find out. In
Fingers
about
crossed.
5 weeks. We'll find out.
We will
won't we?
find out. We
Yeah.
will find out. Well, thank you so much for joining
Well,
us.
thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Honored to be here. Should I take my bug off here? And
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Thank you so
okay,
much.
good. Thanks a lot.
I wanted
see
to
you,
talk
Michael.
more about, Spencer, about the stories that you have about the Carters.
Yeah.
because I think you have some other good ones.
I love telling these stories.
Oh, well,
yeah. Well, I mean, I've already talked about, I want to go back to what I mentioned earlier about my first meeting with Jimmy Carter, when he thanked me for being so kind to Billy, his younger brother. And for viewers who aren't aware or who don't know much about Billy Carter, when Jimmy Carter became president, you know, he was this dignified man, humble but dignified. His younger brother Billy was a wild man. He never broke any laws or committed any crimes, but he would drink beer, he would pull his car over the side of the road and urinate. I mean, he was just being himself. And so he got a lot of negative press because of people basically making fun of him, you know, and ridiculing him and calling him a redneck. But he was just a guy who wanted to live his life and have his fun and not worry about the fact that his brother was president of the United States. So anyhow, in 1980, this is just after the Carter's administration was winding down, I was doing hosting a morning talk show in New York for ABC, and I had Billy and Sybil Carter, his wife, on the show. And unlike many people who had interviewed him, I didn't try to rob him of his dignity. I just wanted him to be who he was and let our viewing audience see who Billy Carter really was. So now, 8 years later, I meet Jimmy Carter in 1988 on the grounds of the Carter Presidential Library. And the first thing he does is thank me for being kind to his brother, who, by the way, was dying of cancer at that very moment. And that was just such a touching thing. First of all, I couldn't believe this former president of the United States remembered this guy named Spencer. He interviewed his brother 8 years prior. So that was one of my favorite stories to tell about the Carters. And then in 1999, and now by this time I had interviewed Jimmy Carter several times about the books he had written and his peace initiatives in the Middle East. But 1999, now I'm moving here to the Bay Area, and I was invited to MC Jimmy Carter's 75th birthday celebration in Americus, Georgia. It was attended by dignitaries from all over the world, diplomats and former U.S. senators. It was and media people as well. And I got up to talk. Oh, there were musical acts, performers there, and in between each two acts, I would get up and talk a little bit about Jimmy Carter, what he meant to me, and my relationship with the Carter family. And I made reference to the infamous Playboy interview that Jimmy Carter did when he was running for president, because he was one of the first candidates for president to talk openly about his faith. And so the interviewer was asking him something about whether he had always adhered to the principles of his faith, and he said, well, I must admit, I committed lust in my heart. So I made reference to that, and the audience was just cracking up. They loved it. But everyone looked at Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter before they laughed to see if the Carters were laughing. And once they saw that the Carters were laughing, then the entire audience laughed.
That's a great story. That's a great story. He has a lot of lightheartedness, it seems, in him.
He has a wicked sense of humor.
You know, there's a great movie that was made called The Rock and Roll President.
Yeah.
And it goes with all of these amazing musicians, Willie Nelson, Bono, the Allman Brothers, a lot of how much they really supported him during his campaigns, of course, and certainly acknowledge him in the film about just how powerful music is, how he feels music is so powerful. Okay, so I'm thinking right now, Jimmy Carter was invited by Bob Dylan to attend a Music Cares Award to accept an award for Dylan. So Dylan asked Carter, please go, and Carter said, nah, I'm not going to do that. So Dylan chose not to take the award.
Oh.
The next year he got an award again. Bob Dylan, that is, got an award, and he called up Jimmy Carter and said, hey, you know, will you come and get that award for me? This time Jimmy did it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And when Jimmy got on stage, he gave this beautiful speech. And one of the things he said to all the musicians there at the Music Cares Award was, musicians have far greater power than any head of state.
That's right.
And I thought, wow, that was just another give to the people, you know, and to the musicians. And I'm saying this because we have two amazing musicians with us right now, who I am very excited to introduce. Steve Wolf, and Mason Holcomb. And they have been regulars with the Jimmy Carter Jamboree from the very beginning. And this started very humbly. You play at this amazing cafe called the Roastery in Fairfax. 6 o'clock in the morning. You are there on Saturdays. You know, some people like go to concerts late at night.
Yes.
But their loyals
Early in
come
the
at
morning.
6 o'clock in the morning
Unbelievable.
with their cup of coffee.
You must be delivering some pretty good music at that hour in the morning.
Try to, definitely.
But they've been part of the events ever since the beginning, since 2017, and just
Yeah.
really happy. I'm always inspired by their music, and the lyrics are amazing and soulful, and just some of the words that we all could be hearing today. But I welcome the both of you. Tell us why you wanted to get involved.
It seemed like a good thing. I've always admired Jimmy Carter and his principles, and when you asked for a song, I thought I had one that would probably be a good reflection of what you were talking about tonight. Yeah? I hope so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get you to? There you go. We got it. We did make the turn. Yeah, yeah. Just trying to get you better on camera. That's all.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, you're looking good.
You too.
Yeah. And how did the both of you meet? How did you guys come together?
Well, he used to play at a local bookstore right around the time when I was getting out of high school. It's around 2007. I was mostly into art, drawing and painting, but I also picked up music, and then he taught me the theory and all how to play professionally.
A lot of people ask if you're father and son.
We just spent a lot of time with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of look alike.
Yeah. And you're obviously too young to remember Jimmy Carter as president, but you obviously have an appreciation for what he means to the country and to our values. And he's turning 100 years old today. That's pretty incredible.
That's right. Whenever I hear people talking about him, it seems like the country will remember him as the last human president we had. Mm-hmm. And everything that came afterwards was very different. And we're all feeling a bit bleak right now, like we don't have hope for the future.
Yeah.
But we look back at him, and he seems to symbolize something that could have been different, and that there's hope somehow, even if it looks bleak right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. He does give us hope. I think that's why so many people reflect on Jimmy Carter in a way that they didn't appreciate him. Many didn't while he was president.
Right.
But now, after his presidency, he's so broadly appreciated across the country and around the world, actually. Yeah, and by all generations.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just going to grow in time, too. It's just going to be more and more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I love about Stephen Mason's work, so we live in a town called Fairfax.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small town. A lot of people have never heard of it,
Yeah.
but it has a real strong music component to it. You really feel the music, you see the music, something is always going on, and I think it brings people together,
Yeah.
you know. And what your work proves is that you can play in a cafe so you play from 6 a.m. until 2 p.m. And for me, I go in the morning because I know you guys are there, and you uplift me with the words. It's like an amazing start to my day. And I'll say that when I moved to Fairfax, I was not in the best place, and I really contribute my own healing and feeling more uplifted through your music. It's amazing how words and music can do that to people. So I just really want to say thank you for all that you've given, and it's so much giving.
Thank you very much. You know, I try to stay true to the message, to like hope and love, and things that are human. You know.
Yeah. And you are now doing a little bit of touring as well.
Here and there, we've got some friends over in Europe that have invited us, so we're doing a bit of touring in the small villages in Germany.
Yeah. You prefer the small venues to the...
Yeah, a very intimate atmosphere. People you've never met in your life will come up to you and become your close friend.
Yeah.
effortlessly.
As you're performing, can you sense the connection that the people in the audience are making with you? Because you, especially, I guess, in a small venue, it's more intimate, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, in the songs, every song has a story, and within those stories, there's an element of the human condition. If you sing truthfully, you know, any person around in the vicinity is going to respond to that.
Yeah.
You know, so I just try to stay true to that. Try to write songs that about that. You know.
Yeah. How do you come up with your ideas? How do you do your songwriting?
I kind of just put out my hands and it kind of just flows through me. Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the Carter administration fit into a lot of, you know, what I wrote in this song. You know, just having lived through that era. You know, and in all the preceding eras, I've seen a lot of presidents come and go, and
Yeah, I'd like to see a lot of them go.
yes.
Yeah, and I think about that. Yes, it's easy to point fingers and blame administrations, but gosh, I feel like we, the people, we've been so divided. You know, how do we pull ourselves together? And you know, certainly music helps with that, but I think that's a big message right now for us to stop the division and start to realize that we really need each other. Yeah.
And there's a hugely unifying force in music.
Yeah. I would like to think that this particular song, you know, can aid in that you know, healing process and keep, you know, the American spirit and dream alive. You know, remind people, you know, that there was a dream once. You know, and
it can be recaptured.
It can be recaptured.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's still there. And what is the name of the song?
Freedom.
Freedom. Freedom. Should we go listen to your video?
Absolutely.
Anything else you wanted to say? Anything more?
No, that's it.
No. Okay. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us on, and happy birthday, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Let's listen to this.
Yeah, let's listen to the video.
I know the difference is a pain. I know the things between us bring pain. And you wouldn't condemn me if you knew. There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do for you, but it seems that my life brought a dagger in the night, and it strikes like lightning in the darkness. There is light, and it's freedom awaiting me. Freedom, can't you see that train keeps on rolling to the shores of liberty, and it's freedom coming in. Freedom, catch the wind that blows through the hearts of men. Those who seek shall rise again. I know the truth you seek's unclear, and that a crisis is now drawing near. The only things that keep you here are the illusions that still bind you to your figure. But you know when it's right, you'll be there to join the fight. And on rolling to the shores of liberty, and it's freedom coming in. Freedom, catch the wind, it flows through the hearts of men. Those who seek shall rise again. You are a rebel, it is clear. The things you say are true, no one wants to hear. Your right's about to disappear. Until you seek the truth, you will live in fear. But the flag's burning fast as the ocean takes the mast. Hear the guns of rebellion drawing near, and it's freedom awaiting me. Freedom, can't you see that train keeps on rolling to the shores of liberty, and it's freedom coming in. Freedom, catch the wind, it flows through the hearts of men. Those who seek shall rise again. And it's freedom awaiting me. Freedom, can't you see that train keeps on rolling to the shores of liberty, and it's freedom coming in. Freedom, catch the wind, this time may not come again. This time you must take a stand.
I want to applaud. That was great.
We can. That was Steve Wolf and Mason Holcomb, and you can find them at the Roastery in Fairfax, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning every Saturday, and yeah, people come just to listen to them
bet
at
they
that
do.
hour. I do. Their music is just so uplifting and soul-seeking and very healing, beautiful. Yeah.
I felt that just talking to them, you know.
Yeah.
And now I now want to hear their music in person. It sounds great.
Yeah, I think some of it is you can find on Spotify and a website. But you know, we were just talking while we were listening to the video about Carter, and I wanted to share one little story with you to spark a conversation.
Sure.
So I was in Costa Rica. Oh, let's see, it was about 8 years ago. And I was at a Quaker house where I was staying. And the Quakers are very good about building community and working with the government to ensure services are there for the people. It's a very clever, very beautiful community of people. And they offer a lot of community events. And in this case, they had a community event. It was a film. And they brought in some of the government officials. And so we were all hanging out. I was there. I was hanging out, eating some amazing pupusas and other food of Central America.
Yeah.
And as I was sitting there having a conversation, and it had been my first time in Costa Rica, really understanding how a country could, they stopped their military, right? They ended their military. And they also put a lot of money into education and conservation.
Yeah.
And look at how that country has just flourished beautifully.
Yeah.
And the people are so happy. And one of the things that the government did was create a campaign called Pura Vida, Pure Life. Like, what makes a pure life? What makes life just rich?
Yeah.
And people believed there that if you have family, if you have community, and you have your health, you pretty much have it all, right?
And that makes perfect sense.
And people in Costa Rica aren't necessarily rushing to get out of Costa Rica.
Right.
Right? There's a real happiness that I witnessed there myself firsthand. But one of the government officials at this event said to me, and he was very humble and he was very kind, and he was sitting down next to me kind of like this, and he said, I want to ask this question, but I don't want to offend you. And it was like this. And I said, what's the question? And he said, why don't people in America like President Jimmy Carter? We view him as the best president of the United States.
Right.
And I had to stop and think in that moment because I hadn't really been thinking about Carter. And I had to look to see if he was even alive. I didn't know. That's how blind and ignorant I was. I just wasn't paying attention.
Right.
But that triggered me. That hit me so hard that I thought,
that's amazing.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
So in this Jamboree event that we do each year, I ask people pretty regularly, as I do at high school students as well, because I'm also a teacher, who's President Jimmy Carter and what do you know about him? Mm-hmm. And people really have to stop and think here in California. I don't know if that's the rest of the nation.
It is the rest of the nation. I can tell you because I've traveled a lot across the nation. Yeah. And I'm continually amazed, as you are, at how little people know about Jimmy Carter, even people who lived through his presidency during that era. They remember the peace accords between Egypt and Israel.
Yes.
Maybe. They remember the things he's done in his post-presidency. Habitat for Humanity comes to mind. But most people know and I wonder, why is it that people don't know more about or show a greater interest in Jimmy Carter?
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is to that.
I mean, I don't know the answer either, and I don't think it's a simple one, but I think there are some components to the answer that come to mind. There is something in the American spirit, whatever that is, that responds to big and bold and strong, the perception of that which is strong. Yeah. And so when a guy like Reagan comes along, who's dashing and dapper and talks about military might and all that, that appeals to a lot of people in America. And many people in our society, well-meaning people, don't stop to think about grace and humility, which are two things that define Jimmy Carter. So people who are defined by their grace and humility in our society are often, not always, but often overlooked. And more attention goes to the people who with the soaring rhetoric and the people who talk about might and strength and all that. So I think that's part of it.
This thing about Carter, which fascinates me, because after that date, of course, I got very curious and I've made a big part of my life in studying and reading about Carter. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because I feel, okay, I know a lot about him, and then I find out more about what he has done with relationship to Central America, for example.
Yeah.
Or Cuba. He actually traveled to Cuba and delivered a speech to Fidel Castro.
Isn't that amazing?
And to me, that's the brilliance of going toward a person who there might be some conflict.
Right.
But feeling courageous enough and being visionary enough to meet that person and create a conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes with such, the wisdom in that is beautiful. And I don't think most people maybe feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I wonder.
I don't know why either, but I think a lot has to do with, a lot of what people feel comfortable with has to do with the leadership that we have. If we have leaders who preach isolationism or who vilify the other whatever the other may be, whether it's Cuba or communism. And yet, even though Reagan didn't want us to have relations with Cuba, he did have the foresight to reach out to Gorbachev
Yes.
and develop a relationship there. So I don't want to sound like I'm slamming Reagan all night, but I guess he could do that and not be too criticized for it by those people I'm talking about who respond to the strength and the perception of strength, because he had that going for him already. So he could be forgiven by the hardliners if he reached out to Gorbachev. But what Carter did with Castro is amazing, and he wanted us to have a relationship or community, have dialogue, you know.
And just for the record, Mikhail Gorbachev did send us a birthday greeting for President Jimmy Carter back in 2020.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful letter that he sent to us to give to President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And it talked about, leadership can be difficult, but friendship is so important.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And how he trusted us to do that for Carter, I thought was telling of Gorbachev.
Yes.
To trust the people to do something like that, which I had a lot of respect for Gorbachev.
I have great respect for him too. Think of the courage and the character that it took for him to be willing to radically change that old system that existed in the Soviet Union and move towards democracy.
That's right.
Yeah, which wasn't fully achieved, but he made the effort.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and he took a lot of hits for that.
He did. He certainly did. Yeah.
Well, I hope that we can. I hope the Carter story can flourish more, and I will tell you what the Jimmy Carter Jamboree is going to do after tonight.
What's that?
We are converting into a nonprofit organization, and with the musicians' help, we're raising money to send high school students to Atlanta, Georgia, to visit not just the Carter Center, but also Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s National Historic Park.
That's awesome.
And we think that might help facilitate a more fair examination of Carter's legacy for the next generation and give them the opportunity to participate.
Yeah. That's
we'd
fantastic.
love to welcome another guest.
Come on in.
We have coming in. Music, we can't get enough of music. All right. Yes. This is the one and only Randall Sequeira of the Dream Farmers. And he's out of Sebastopol, and I'm so excited. Now, have you been eating birthday cake out there while we've been talking? No? Save some birthday cake
No,
for
Mom.
us.
No, Mom.
Were there 100 candles on it?
Yeah, we do have a bunch of food and birthday cake after the show today.
100 candles, wow, just think of that. Think of a century of life doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Conflict resolution.
Right.
Peaceful things, using other than military means to get your gains. What a man.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
100 years of a life well lived.
Absolutely, and not by words, actions.
Deeds.
By
Right,
deeds.
right.
That is so astounding
Practicing
and rare.
Yeah. Practicing the principles.
I didn't even know he was a
professed.
furniture maker, a woodworker. I just saw one of Barbara's books. I'm like, dude, is there anything you don't do? And I in one of my guitar pages or something, I saw that he has a guitar, an acoustic guitar that was made from a tree that he planted.
Wow.
No.
Made, I swear to God, I
You're
swear.
making that up.
I'm crossing my, crossing my heart. It shows him with this nice blonde, big acoustic guitar, and he's sitting in his chair like, yeah,
Wow.
I planted that tree, and now it's a guitar. I swear, I was
I
like,
feel like he's taunted us with all these
Too many
ideas. Like, I want to go
accomplishments.
plant a tree now.
it's like too many accomplishments. Some people who have met Jimmy Carter and Muhammad Ali.
Oh, you know.
Oh,
You know,
I've seen your book. I've read up on you, brother.
I appreciate that.
That's amazing. The greatest meets the greatest. I mean,
I love
What's
it.
up?
I love it.
greatest president, greatest journalist,
Yeah.
Greatest
and
boxer.
the greatest greatest.
Yeah, greatest greatest.
Amazing.
Right. Greatest greatest. Yeah.
Larger than a boxer.
Oh man, way beyond.
Just
that.
like Jimmy,
Great
larger than a
humanitarian.
president.
Yeah. That's right.
a human global example
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
the coming global consciousness.
Yeah.
The coming global consciousness. What do you know?
I know that people often say, because I keep up on things like, you know a lot of the dystopian actions of the day. And my friends are always saying, well, gee, Randall, you know all these facts and what's going on, and you're doing so much work in this area or that area. Do you think it could ever think? I go, yes, because I was alive when Beatlemania happened, and I saw a linkage of the entire planet to have a consciousness jump.
Yep.
Wow.
That gives me hope.
Oh yeah.
It can happen.
I'll never lose hope.
It can happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my own eyes,
Yeah.
and we've lived through it, and we know that people can link in a positive, hopeful, constructive, loving way between genders, between
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Genders,
Planets,
races,
continents,
colors.
races, like just let's go for
Yep.
it.
Yep.
You know, with more leaders like Jimmy Carter,
Yeah.
it is possible.
Yeah.
I like to say that we're going to Jimmy the nation back to
Well, I like that.
honesty.
You know that means break into the place, don't you?
Break into what?
If you Jimmy, listen.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we also talk it when you Jimmy things. You make it. You work it to make it work.
Oh yeah.
Like MacGyver style.
Exactly. Yeah. I sail on sailboats, and we say, oh, yeah, I got to Jimmy.
Oh yeah,
this,
save our
Jimmy that.
life. We have a broken mast. What are you going to do?
You got to Jimmy it to work.
We'll figure out something. We'll take this rail and.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need. That's the kind of forward motion, that the momentum that can really bring change upon us.
Well, you wrote some music about this subject, I understand.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're trying to influence us,
Well,
inspire
it's
us.
really easy to take the primary vibe of your time, and of course, what do you see in media? That a lot of times, that there are really good reporting things, good stations like community TV and media and PBS and Fringe 24 and DW News, and there's some really great BBC, some really great sources. Al Jazeera, if they let it be, and so it's easy to see the negative and possibly have that influence your creative output. So I gave myself assignment of saying, with what I said, the future can be. We have every technological possibility, every educational possibility, every nutritional. We have all the ingredients to make the cake.
Yeah.
So I wrote, looking forward to the future.
Well, let's take a look at that now.
Oh, thank you.
Looking toward the future.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Here it
By Randall, Sequeira, and the Dream Farm.
We're looking forward to the future. Some small repairs and some sutures. We're looking forward to the time just ahead. A planet living by what Martin King said. We're looking forward to horizons to come, with expectations that the bad days are done. Imagination, a joining of hands, a team of players from all the lands. The sun will power all the newness we need. We will be eating from the heavenly seeds. The trees and oceans will be cherished old friends. Can't let the greedy be in power again. Our little planet is the rarest fine gift. Let nature flourish, give us a lift. North, south, west and east, lessons of love, sharing the feast. Loving kindness shows children the way. Envision tomorrow, not just today. The time is coming, youth steps to believe. Enough for everyone to feel all our needs. A tree, a teacher, clean water, a gift.
I'm looking forward to the time after this. No more hatred or ignorance. I will enjoy the age coming round. We'll be building it up, not tearing it down. Smiling sisters, pristine blue water streams, laughing little children, living their dreams. Fresh new songs of freedom, new dances to do. Justice, not just for a few. We're looking forward to the future. Some small repairs and some sutures.
Wow. Okay, I'm energized for the future. You know, I'm reminded of being a teenager. So I'm Gen X. So I grew up with the 60s music all around me, but I wasn't part of that era. I was born in '68. But what my generation got were the music videos of the 1980s and 90s and MTV. So you're kind of taking me back to my teen years when I watch these videos. It's like, how many hours did I spend? But I remember how music was it was so prevalent.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And
it was more than music. It was almost like a universal, again, kind of almost a religion. Like, did you hear, the anti-war, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Dylan, and the Beatles, and the Kinks, and the Stones, and Muddy Waters, and Sam Cooke?
Oh, yeah.
And they were singing for a reason.
Yeah.
It meant everything.
Marvin Gaye,
It wasn't about getting some, fancy material possession.
You're right.
It was about saying your truth and singing your heart out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my impression.
Yeah, well, Harry Belafonte in our interview.
Oh, Harry Belafonte! Oh my God!
I know.
Yeah, between you two, I'm pretty jealous. I gotta go.
Oh, you're doing amazing work all around. But one of the things he said was using what is given to you. It's a gift, right? Music, and using it as a platform for something good. And a lot of musicians do that really beautifully. And I think those are the ones that really impact us the most.
The elder care people, the farmers, the builders, like the cats you had in here, Steve, and they're sending out the healing vibes everywhere. All the moms in the world. I mean, let's let the real people.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're a farmer.
Yeah.
You actually brought some beautiful pears and apples from Shamsapour.
Good time of year for you. Good time of year for you.
Yeah.
Why do you enjoy farming?
Why?
What do you enjoy about it?
Well, some of the most intelligent people seem to think that the biggest breakdown of the human species is a disconnect from Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And when you're farming, you have no choice but to pay attention to a larger voice that really runs the system.
Yeah.
The climate, the rain, the soil, the different kinds of animals, the integration of all the living organisms feed into the ability to take this miracle of photosynthesis and composting. And people they see some fancy video like, oh, so-and-so movie star, whatever, is like, they wore this dress or they had this hat, or hey, there's this little thing called a seed. and you put the right things on it, and it can. What more miracle do you want?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I saw a great quote at the Carter Center by Carter, and it went something like this. He said he loved to feel the softness on his bare feet when he worked the field. So he would go out there intentionally barefoot.
Yeah, yes.
Just to feel that the texture and the softness and that connection.
And he did a lot of plowing, I read, with his mule team. G for to the right and haw to go to the left, or maybe the other way. But and I was reading about his stories in the book. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so that answers that goes to your question to me. I mean, put it to.
That's something else really fundamental that you and Jimmy Carter have in common.
Totally.
You know, and when you're a farmer, you every day you witness or experience the life cycle, the cycle of life, or the circle of life, or whatever. Both, the cycle and the circle. Yeah.
The circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really essential going into education. I'm a teacher as well, and although yes, in some communities that is very strong, the natural world, their connection to it, and the opportunity to experience the natural world. Here in Marin County, for example, there's a very strong culture of being out in the woods and building a relationship with that, whether it's with the earth, whether it's with the trees. You're building a relationship with it. And I think that is so important right now, more than ever, with all of these devices and social media and everything. So, that's just another component that we can really embrace more of.
Reconnecting with nature, just like your friend Sylvia Earle.
Sylvia Earle, I saw
Jane
her in
Goodall.
your video.
Yeah,
Sylvia Earle
people
is
like
another
that
one who's such a
They're onto
powerhouse.
something. Those people are onto something.
She's 85 years old, and she's still advocating. She might be older than that now, and still advocating for the ocean and just doing such amazing work to inspire the rest of us to, just think about the ocean. Right?
I'm glad I grew up in a rural community where my family, we tilled our soil and grew all of our fresh produce.
You said Virginia?
Yeah. In a rural county between Richmond and Williamsburg called Charles City. There was no city in Charles City County.
That's
it was
funny.
Charles City County. And the only thing at the county seat, which was called Charles City, was a courthouse, a general store, a post office, and a jail. I experienced all but the jail. But anyhow, we tilled the soil, and we grew all of our own fresh produce and vegetables and all that, and fruit. And there's something about that connection with the soil.
It stays with you too.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it sounds corny to people who haven't had that experience, but man, you really appreciate the earth.
Let's put it in the public school.
Yeah.
That's gardens in schools is really a site agenda for children to grow their own food. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to speak up for Rosalind right now.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you are.
She's lingering in these conversations.
Behind every successful man is a successful woman.
She did so much, of course, with mental health and really advocating for the respect for caregivers.
Oh gosh, yes.
But another thing she did was she developed this trail across the United States for pollinating for pollinators, and it's the Rosalind Garden project.
Butterfly garden, right?
Butterfly garden, and so you can actually write to her project today, and if you have a butterfly-friendly garden, you can get a little plaque that says Rosalind's Garden.
Wow! Wow!
I have one. Yes, I do. But you know what? More important than having a plaque or anything like that, it's a consciousness. It reminds you that it's just not you here, but there's this whole system.
A beautiful, amazing, genius system of creation.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That is part of us all.
Monarchs,
around.
milkweed. Whoa.
I know.
It's like, come on.
I love monarchs, the butterfly kind. Not
right. But we could have a benevolent monarch. Maybe we could try that.
Benevolent?
Oh, sorry. It hasn't been really come across, has it?
No.
This conversation's getting heavy for me, you guys.
We like it.
I'm so glad you mentioned Rosalind Carter because, she was Jimmy Carter's partner in everything they did. He gave her credit. He said she was the most valuable component of his campaign. And he conferred with her on every major decision he had to make. They were full partners in life.
And that's another example the two of them made for us to focus in on, like, this is how a relationship is done successfully.
Yeah.
That's a whole huge bag.
Yeah.
I spent enough time around them to see the truth of what people say about them as having been a truly in love couple. I mean, they really loved each other deeply. And I remember,
Lucky people.
gosh, probably over 10 years ago, they were at an Atlanta Braves home game. You know how baseball stadiums have the big screen, and they have what they call the kiss cam. And
right.
And so the Carters were sitting there, and they realized they were on the camera, and he turned to her and grabbed her and gave her this big smooch. You know?
Awesome.
And then they were both in their 90s at that point. That was so great.
That's
Well, he was.
beautiful.
She was maybe 88 or 89. He was like 92.
And they met.
You're not old till you're cold.
That's it.
So Jimmy Carter was 3 years old when he first met Rosalind.
Yeah.
He was a newborn.
Yeah.
And he went to their neighbor's house
my
and
God.
he met her.
Yep.
So that was their first little, entourage.
A newborn and a
little meeting. And then years later, if
didn't know
I
that.
remember the story correctly, you might be able to help me out with this. But he came home one night to his mom. His mom is another one who was just an amazing
Oh,
person.
Miss Lillian.
Miss Lillian,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, she just makes me smile when I see pictures of her. But he came home after perhaps an evening with Rosalind and said, "That's the woman I'm going to marry."
He did. That's
And I
exactly
think he asked Rosalind to marry her the first time, and she said, "Sorry, I got to finish school. I got things going on in life." I think she said no, but he asked again.
And then she said yes.
Yeah, and what a life they had, coming from a small town and into the world, and all that they've done in Africa, Central America, Latin America, Cuba, China. It's really, it gives us all a little bit of hope.
Yeah,
of
a lot
what
of
that
hope.
adventure in life can provide.
A lot of hope.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Okay,
coming
thanks for
today,
having me.
Randall.
Randall, I was
Yeah,
going
oh,
to
yeah,
say, don't
sure,
want to leave
Randall.
this?
Thanks so much for coming, Randall
Thanks for having me.
Sequeira, the Dream Farmers.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
Catch
All right.
their tunes. Yeah, what really amazing.
Hey, look who's here.
Oh,
So our next guest, Spencer, is somebody I so greatly admire. I think you do too. We were doing it together
Yeah.
here with our broadcast a few years ago.
Yep.
During the pandemic, we had our first 2-hour broadcast with lots of different guests, and you and I were via Zoom.
yep, that's right.
And we had guests who were via Zoom, and we had videos, and we had photographs, and there was one person in the production room. Well, another person finally did come to help this person out, but there he was holding it together the
He made
entire
it
time.
all
It is the
happen.
one and only
Yes.
Omid
Omid.
Shamsapour. Where are your other arms? You must have some octopus arms.
I packed them in my bag, so I only brought the two out, the human ones. Yeah. Well, thank you, Barbara and Spencer, for having me here tonight.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really great,
Yeah.
and you're doing the show tonight. You are our official director tonight, really making things happen. Just thanks so much. And you've been involved in this for a number of years.
Yeah, pretty much since I started here in 2016, I think we connected, and then we talked about a lot of things that we have in common: music, politics, social justice, and everything that comes with it. And also getting to connect with you, a living legend in the media world, and also you in the community as well. So I'm very blessed to be able to work with you guys on a personal and professional.
Oh, that's very
manner.
nice.
So, yeah.
We feel the same way towards you, believe me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you're really an integral part of our community here in Marin County too. Omid is not only the cameraman for here at Marin Television, and you do the production, and you run the show, I think, on so many different levels, but you're out there with the schools, with the kids, and really giving your soul to a lot of people in this community. And it's just really amazing. I just want to acknowledge Omid in that way, because I feel like that's what this whole project is about. The people that have been coming, like yourself, it's just people who are very inspiring, much like Carter, of course, is too. But
Thank you. No, it really wouldn't be possible without my amazing team that we have here, especially the crew that we have here tonight, Jonah, Veda, and Chris. Thank you guys very much for being in the control room. Marin, Mariposa, and Justin holding the fort up in front. It takes a village to make this happen,
Yeah.
and to the rest of the Marin TV Ohana that we have. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you guys for making this possible. You guys are all equally important in that matter. So thank you for
That's awesome.
helping build this community with me. So.
And Carter, what are your thoughts about President Carter, and how did you come to really, see where this was going?
It's funny, the first time I ever got familiar with President Carter, this actually kind of ties into my folks, my dad particularly. When I was in first grade, on my way to first grade, my dad had me memorize all the presidents in order.
Wow.
So I know number 39 was Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And so I remember at the time it was I think George H.W. Bush was the president. He was the most recent, number 41. So I just, every day just memorizing the presidents, and Jimmy Carter was there. So yeah, no, he's done a lot of great things. He's had, I know there's been some times with international policy, there's been some, polarizing views on maybe how things went down. Like any presidency, good and bad happens, but I think overall Jimmy Carter has been a very good president for the United States, and I got to learn more about him over the years, and also through you as well. I can appreciate everything that he's done, especially with social justice, with solar power, with the environment, and seeing how it's impacted you guys who actually lived through all that. It's really good to see through your guys' lens what you guys experienced as American citizens under Jimmy Carter's presidency. So, I've been doing this with Barbara and you for years, these Jimmy Carter celebrations for his birthday. And I remember years ago we were talking about, if he ever makes it to 100, we'll do something big. So I'm honored to be here tonight to celebrate Jimmy Carter's 100th birthday with both of you here tonight. So it's been great. I'm very, very blessed to be part of a very special moment where the first president in U.S. history to have hit the centurion mark.
Yes.
Yeah. It really gives us all an opportunity just to pause and reflect, and stopping for just a while to do that. It's so healthy. Because I feel, I don't know how you feel, it's easy to constantly run, which our society tends to do.
Yeah.
And if you can just stop and just go, whoa, what just happened these last 45 years since Carter was in? It's an opportunity to really ask ourselves where we are going and where we were in the 60s, right? I think in that movement, in that generation, to see how they're living their lives, and can we collectively, and this is a we, right? It's a collective. How do we unite again and find that hope and that spirit together?
And as I've seen, from these books and your guys' accounts of Jimmy Carter personally, it's really good to see how much of a humanitarian he was and still is, and how revered he is by a majority of Americans, if not all, in some capacity.
He never stopped serving the American people after his presidency, or for that matter, the global population. He never stopped serving. And many presidents, not all. We have some recent examples of presidents who remain active in some capacity after that. But many of them just ride off to their ranches and sit back and enjoy lives of luxury, with the Secret Service. But Jimmy Carter just never stopped working for humanity.
Yeah, he never had an off switch for that, and I admire him for that.
Well, maybe he can bring us all together, because I do have some messages from people abroad.
All right.
That is very unusual. So I decided to write to some leaders, global leaders. Why not?
That's Barbara.
Carter taught us as people we have the power, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But I did write to Putin's office. And they actually responded, not Putin himself, but his press secretary, information office of the Russian Federation did, and he said, "We are grateful to you for such a kind offer," to talk about Carter. President Carter indeed did a lot in his time. And although they felt that maybe their words wouldn't be heard, and they went on to say, "Nevertheless, we're confident that nowadays a statement by President Putin might not find the proper response in America." But I want to say thank you for acknowledging Carter.
Exactly.
That is tremendous, especially a little person like me. They took the time to do that, so thank you. We also, the poster for our event, the image, was actually done by a war refugee from Gaza.
Wow.
Who's currently living in Australia. I got to meet him. His wife is from the Ukraine. Believe me, sitting at a table with a family from Gaza and from the Ukraine was very humbling for me. So he really wanted to make the poster and to share his respect for Carter.
Yeah.
And his brother wrote, "Happy birthday to President Carter. We Gazans thank him for his stand and will always appreciate it, inshallah."
Wow.
What if Carter could bring us all together?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I know it's just so much tragedy and sadness and horror going on in that part of the world especially. And to see countless innocent lives being ripped apart, and wanting to be there to support and defend and protect our fellow brothers and sisters from all over.
All over.
And to fight all evil, regardless of where it's at, and to support all innocence and all great humans, and especially those who are unfairly being attacked. You know, my heart goes out to each and every one of them from wherever, you know, and especially out in Gaza and Ukraine and everywhere in the world where there's injustice. You know, we're all there for you. And this Carter celebration, I think, is a good symbol of bringing unity and hope for this world.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say he proved that you can.
Yes. Yeah.
You can bring division together to make harmony. And he did that with Israel and Egypt at a time nobody thought it was possible.
Right.
And I think we have to believe that that can happen again. And we need those leaders to take that position that Carter took.
That's exactly where I was going with what I was going to say. I mean, he brought Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat together, and no one thought that was possible. And he made them stay there at Camp David until they got it done. And then, of course, more recently, he wrote the book, We Can Have Peace in the Holy Land.
Right.
You know?
As there should be. I think Palestinians and Israelis can coexist and live together.
Absolutely, they have to.
No room for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia.
Right.
And also on the other part of the Middle East too, my brothers and sisters out there in Iran, especially for fighting for freedom, especially for women.
Yes.
You know, my heart goes out to each and every one of you, and I fight for you guys each and every day. So.
Your family is from Iran?
Yeah, family's from Iran. Yeah. Parents came out here and had me in San Francisco, but I'm rooted from Iran. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
Honored to be Persian and American.
Good. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Beautiful culture.
It is.
And language and food. Oh boy.
Oh yes. We'll all celebrate some good Persian food. Yeah.
So it's someone's birthday today besides President Jimmy Carter.
That's right.
That's true. My father, Hamid Shamsapour, I just want to wish you a happy birthday. You're an absolute living legend. I love you very much. I'm honored to be your son, and thank you for being an amazing dad, and to all the great people out there. But happy birthday, Dad. Love you.
That's awesome.
Happy birthday, Dad.
That is so awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Think it's time to say good evening and
just about
move
that
on to
time,
some birthday cake.
Yeah, I think so.
Spencer, thanks so much for being here with us. You know, having you here, it's actually a lift to all of us because your presence here just gives us a sense of optimism, and your approach to all the things that you do. So beautiful.
I deeply appreciate that. But, you know, I would travel long distances to celebrate Jimmy Carter's birthday, or just to celebrate Jimmy Carter, not necessarily on his birthday, anytime, because of what he has given all of us. It's hard to cite the most important thing he's given us, but one of them is hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for having me here. Spencer, truly an honor to be in your presence and to work with you again.
Thanks.
It's always a
Omid.
pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
And Barbara, I really appreciate our friendship. It goes real deep the last 7-8 years, and looking forward to more, and the best is yet to come. So thank you both for having me.
Well, that's great,
All
Omid.
right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.